Welcome to People for Portsmouth. Our mission is to achieve good governance in Portsmouth through voter registration, education, and participation. And you are being educated and are participating tonight. I'm Pam Clopel. I'm president of People for Portsmouth, and we will support candidates who govern with transparency and responsiveness, want to achieve financial stability, want to encourage business growth, who will assure equal protection and justice for all, prepare all children for educational success, and capitalize on the diversity of Portsmouth's people, history, and natural resources. Paul Bell's wonderful. He takes care of us so well. This year we plan to impact the constitutional officer election. In June, and some of you were here, we met the candidates who were running for sheriff. Mike Moore, Glenn Perry, and Bill Watson. And you voted for your choice, which will guide our endorsement of candidates. In July, we met with the candidates running for treasurer, Paige Cherry, Elizabeth Simmons, and Ron Melton. At least two of those people are here tonight. Over 600 ballots were submitted with your choice for treasurer. Tonight, we have a forum for the candidates running for Commonwealth Attorney. Stephanie Morales, the lovely lady in red, and TJ Wright, the handsome guy in the blue tie. Each position will be decided in November, when we also vote for our delegates, Steve Heretic and Matthew James, who are unopposed, a lieutenant governor, a governor. So put November 7th on your calendar. We will endorse and announce our candidates for constitutional officers in early September, and we will ask them to be with us at our September 28th meeting to discuss their platform and their needs. We've invited members of the Martin Luther King Political Action Committee and the NAACP to join us tonight. Please raise your hand if you represent either of those groups. Well, I'm sorry, I don't see anybody, but you would have certainly been welcome. I'd like to also acknowledge Portsmouth City Watch as People for Portsmouth's media partner for our forums. Stand up, Martin. Thank you. Portsmouth City Watch has been a leader in providing gavel-to-gavel video coverage of our candidates at our forums and various other official bodies and community organizations since 2005. I also want to acknowledge Paul Bell and Valerie Gaskins. These people have donated their time and energy and technology for every forum we've had. They're absolutely wonderful. So please, let's give them an applause. Tonight, again, we are discussing the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. The responsibility of the Commonwealth Attorney is to prosecute criminal offenses that occur in Portsmouth, all felony offenses, many misdemeanor violations, and some traffic violations, to coordinate extradition of criminals who have fled the state, to prosecute asset forfeitures and individuals who fail to obey court orders, to consult with, advise, and provide assistance for ongoing criminal investigations to the Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, and the Virginia State Police regarding policies and procedures, and also to answer citizen inquiries concerning the criminal justice system. People for Portsmouth distributed a survey asking you for questions for tonight's forum, and boy, did you respond. So the questions you're going to hear tonight are your questions, and we look forward to hearing them. After a prepared questions have been asked, we'll open the mics to you so you can ask questions that may not have been covered. After that, we're going to give you a commercial about why we need money, And we also have 20 boxes of bagel nuts, the most ever. When you go home tonight, because of Edward Barham, Edward, where are you? Online, you can vote for your candidate for Commonwealth Attorney. So it will be there waiting for you when you go home. We have a timer for tonight, Sergio Neal. So Sergio, raise your hand. Our question chair is Julie Boone. So Julie, if you'd raise your hand. And our moderator is Laura Geller. Laura was one of our moderators last year, and she is an award-winning journalist and the main investigative reporter for 13 News Now. Laura joined WVEC in April of 2015, where she came from Richmond. Since coming to Hampton Roads, her investigations have led to changes in laws, updates to policies, and protections for citizens. Laura's work at 13 News Now was recently this year recognized by Virginia's Associated Press Award for Public Service through Journalism for her series on the VA, the Veterans Administration. This is the highest award the Associated Press gives, and this series has also been nominated for an Emmy. Last year it was the same thing. She got an Emmy Award for Outstanding Investigative Reporter, and also the 2016 Emmy Award for Politics Government Story for her 13 News Now investigations, funded by fines. The Virginia Associated Press also presented Laura with the Meritorious Award for Public Service through Journalism and Investigative Reporting. She has had a wonderful career, and in Richmond she also received the 2015 Virginia Associated Press Award for Outstanding Effort by an Individual Reporter. Her documentary, Lest We Forget, The Legacy of the Nuremberg Trials, won a 2007 Silver Telly Award, which is the highest honor given by this organization. She's a New York native, but knew it was important to come south. She's from Northwestern University with a bachelor's degree of science in journalism. Not many people can say that they're living their dream, but Laura wanted to be a journalist as early as the age of 8. So she's honored to be able to investigate stories and give a voice to the people in Hampton Roads, and we're honored to have Laura Geller here with us tonight to be our moderator. Thank you, Laura. And you're on. Thank you.
Thank you, now that I'm blushing. Let's get started. But before we begin, we just want you guys to know that this forum is being taped for any of the supporters who could not make it tonight. So once we get to the audience question portion of tonight, if you do not want to be on camera, just let us know ahead of time and we can accommodate you. As Pam mentioned, all of tonight's questions were submitted by supporters of People for Portsmouth. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to thank you all for participating in that survey. So before everything got started, we picked some numbers. And so Ms. Morales will be the first person to introduce yourself. And as you know, we're being timed. So please pay attention and we will cut you off when your time is up. Nicely, but we will.
And it's 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 minutes.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
As you know, I'm Stephanie Morales. I'm currently your elected Commonwealth's attorney. And before I get started, I want to say thank you to Pam and the other members of the People for Portsmouth Board for hosting this forum. I also want to thank the members of the audience for being here tonight for this very important occasion. And this might surprise you, but I also want to thank TJ Wright for running for Commonwealth's attorney. I love democracy. I love democracy. And a good part about democracy is that we get to have periodic elections. And that allows voters to inform themselves on the issues and to express their aspirations and their hopes for our city in the form of their vote. I plan to use this election to introduce myself to you, to share my accomplishments and my goals. And I also hope to inform you and engage with you so that you will learn with me and go along with me as I go on this journey to run for re-election for Commonwealth's attorney. But that's not the most important thing. the most important thing is to think about how this election impacts us. And if you're not a fan of the status quo, I invite you to join our campaign for change, because the status quo is not good enough. I was born here in Portsmouth. I was educated here in the Portsmouth Public Schools. And then when I went on to attend law school at the College of William and Mary, I love Portsmouth so much that I commuted every single day from Portsmouth to William and Mary. And now my husband and I are raising our 4 children here in the city of Portsmouth. And I love Portsmouth so much that I want it to get better. We have too much violent crime, and we simultaneously have too many of our citizens in jail, and we need to do better. I invite you to engage with me. I invite you to read my literature, to visit my website, to learn about all that we've been able to accomplish in 2.5 years. 26 homicide convictions. We have gotten greater training in the newest prosecutorial techniques. We have built an amazing relationship with our schools to help break the school-to-prison pipeline. And we have made commitments to our returning citizens who have served their time for the mistakes of the past. I want you to engage in conversation with me. Ask me questions, particularly those of you who may have questions about my accomplishments or my goals, and even those of you who have committed to voting for my opponent. This is the time to engage and to talk. This is not the time to shut down the lines of communication, and I hope that tonight is the beginning of a discussion. I hope to talk to you about the values that we all share. I hope to learn about you. I hope that you learn about me. And I hope to earn your vote, and that we will work together for the next 4 years to have the Portsmouth that I know we all can, and that we can share the values together that we all hold dear. Thank you so much.
Mr. Wright, before you go, just so you know what we're holding up here, the yellow sign means you have 15 seconds left, and the red sign is your stop sign. So go ahead.
Perfect. Good evening. My name is TJ Wright, and I'm running for Commonwealth's attorney. I'd like to thank also people from Portsmouth for having us here today. I'd like to thank everybody for being here. And I think this is a great forum. This is perfect. This is perfect for attorneys. This forum is perfect for attorneys, and here's why. It's just like a trial. This is our opening statement. We're going to tell you exactly who we are and what we stand for. As we go through the questions, that's going to be your witnesses. We're the witnesses, we're the defendants, we're the plaintiffs. And you get to find out about us and where we stand. And at the end, we give our closing statement. And when we give that closing statement, I'm going to ask you for something. And what I'm going to ask you for is I'm going to ask for your vote. I'm going to ask for your time, and I'm going to ask for your help. And once we're done, I'm hopeful and I'm confident that we're going to have all 3. So let me tell you what I'm going to tell you today. Because my grandfather always told me he'd tell people 3 things. Tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. So let's talk about me, my favorite subject. I'm a University of Miami graduate. I am a come here, not a from here. But I'm a come here who is the son of a from here. And my children are from here. So, University of Miami graduate. Once I graduated from University of Miami, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. I was a truck mechanic there, and they said, TJ, you're not a good truck mechanic. So then they sent me to officer candidate school. From there, I learned how to fly the F-18, excuse me. I deployed to combat in Iraq. I did a deployment in Southeast Asia. And after my first child was born, I said, I don't want to deploy anymore. Because, like Ms. Coppell said, some people live their dreams, and I'm living it because I'm a dad. So I said, I don't want to watch my children grow up from afar. So I decided to go to law school. I went here to Regent University. Law school is typically a 3-year program. I graduated in 2.5 years. I'm older, I have things to do, and I have a family to support. During my last term, or my last year of law school, I worked with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office under Omabu. I even prosecuted and tried a jury trial as a prosecutor. After that, and I graduated, getting a job was the most important thing, because again, supporting my family is what I was focused on. I went into private practice. I did that for a little bit less than a year, and I said I can do this on my own, because I needed to expand my experience base so that I can be the best attorney that I can and serve my home the best that I can. So I've had my own practice here since 2014. Portsmouth is my home now. I want to be your Commonwealth's attorney, And at the end of this, at the end of the evidence, I think that I'll get your vote. Thank you.
So this first round of questions are questions that have been specifically designed for each of you. So Ms. Morales, I will ask you a question first. Some of these questions are rather lengthy and some of them are multi-pronged. So I will read it slowly, but if you need me to repeat something, please ask. Citizens have read articles in the Virginian Pilot where your assistants were accused of prosecutorial misconduct, mistrial due to a violation of the rules of evidence, dismissal of cases, and refiling of charges only to have witnesses flee the area and issues running into the speedy trial statute. Some citizens feel it is a problem with efficiency in case management. How do you respond to this, and do you feel these issues can be resolved?
Laura, thank you for that question. I always embrace the opportunity to be able to talk about things that may be difficult and things that members of the general public may not understand. And oftentimes, if you read the headline of an article and you don't read all the way until the end, you may not get the full picture on what really happened. And so I know there's a specific set of cases that the paper did an article on about cases that were non-prost, which means that they were withdrawn at the time. And there was really no follow-up on what happened with those cases, and if you didn't read to the bottom, you really didn't see why. And so the emphasis was placed on the fact that there is something that all attorneys run up against, which is a speedy trial clock. But what we explained to the paper in a spirit of transparency was that these cases were not null prosequi or null pros because of speedy trial. They were null pros because there was a lack of evidence. When these cases were withdrawn, I did not talk about the type of investigation that was done on these cases. I did not tell the newspaper that there was a police officer who's no longer with the police force that presented issues with that case that basically put us in a position where we did not have witnesses and we didn't have physical evidence. And when we were able to put a different police officer on that case close to the end of the speedy trial time frame, he found several witnesses and he found pieces of physical evidence that gave us a much better outlook for trial. And so what I did was, instead of talking to the paper, I wrote a letter to the chief of police at the time and the city manager to address that concern. But on our end, we just put our best foot forward. We took the heat in the paper. We refiled those cases and we convicted 2 of them with murder. We convicted 2 of them with conspiracy to commit murder. And the only person who was not convicted was the person who the 4 other defendants said, this person is actually innocent and they had nothing to do with it. So oftentimes, if there's a follow-up, we will get to the bottom of things. But I'm here to say to you that we got results in the end because we made sure we put our best case forward, and that's what it's about.
Mr. Wright, in the last election for Commonwealth's attorney, one of the biggest criticisms of Ms. Morales was that she lacked the experience needed to hold the office. Some have expressed the same concern with your experience. How do you respond to that?
I'm experienced. It depends on what you classify as experience. And I apologize for coming out like that, but as I've been challenged with being arrogant, but the Commonwealth's attorney, not only are they lead prosecutor in that office, but they're a manager. I was in the Marine Corps for 10 years. I managed people. I managed people in combat. I managed people. We had aircraft that were airborne 24 hours a day for 6 months straight. If you have any doubts about my management ability, then I'm not sure what can convince you. As far as prosecuting, or as far as being an attorney, I'm a very good and competent attorney. In fact, I've done a jury as a prosecutor. I've done juries as a defense attorney. I've seen both sides of the table. I think what you need, and you absolutely have to have as far as a prosecutor is concerned, is somebody who understands the defendant, that understands the community. Because I've seen the compassionate side. I know what it's like when you have a family member that's in jail and you're scared. And to say that everybody's guilty and we're going to lock everybody up, I don't think is the way that we need to go. We need to understand both sides of the table. And more importantly, I have a relationship with law enforcement. I am a defense attorney. And I have a relationship with law enforcement because I respect what they do and I know where they came from. So with regard to my experience, I think I have plenty of experience. And I think that I can manage that office effectively and efficiently, and I think that we can have fair and and diligent prosecutions. Thank you.
Ms. Morales, this one's for you. A recent Virginian Pilot article indicated that you took 22 trips, 14 of which were out of state, and 8 of which your chief administrator took with you at a cost to taxpayers of almost $18,000. What specific knowledge did your chief administrator gain from those trips to help you prosecute cases? And please be specific. And will this level of travel continue for both of you and your chief administrator if you're reelected?
Thank you for that question, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to clarify. And first, let me correct the figures. It sounds like the amount that you have would have been the amount that was spent for the entire travel budget for the office, and not the amount that was spent for myself and my chief administrator / public information officer. So first, with that clarification, that $18,000 figure is actually the amount that was spent for the entire office out of our $20,000 travel and training budget. And quite a bit of that travel and training that was done, personally, I was able to get a lot of outside funding for those trainings, especially the ones that were out of state. That was something that also may not have been specified clearly in that newspaper article. The bottom line is that the newspaper did not uncover all of the travel and training that we did. So what I did was I opened up my books, I said, come sit in my office, and I said, here's the information. And here's even more than what you asked for. Let me make sure you understand where I've gone, what I've done, and what all of the attorneys in the office have been doing, and how we've brought that back into the office. I also sat down with the newspaper to explain what each one of the trainings were about, and how they went to my job duties and the job duties of my administrator. And since Ms. Geller specifically asked me about the trainings that related to my chief administrator's duties, she went through a lot of training, some of which had to do with the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission and some other federal government agencies that put on training about personnel-related matters. She underwent press training for how to maintain websites so that we can keep the public informed, and we implemented that into the office. I could go on and on about all the wonderful things that we did with respect to training. Some of the travel even had to do with cases that we prosecuted, homicides, where we got convictions and were successful in doing things that kept people who have killed people off of our streets. Furthermore, we have implemented a training program in the office where we train every day, and we've started training the police department. So as you can see, this is valuable, and it really has helped us become a better office. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, these are not my questions. These are questions from you all and the supporters, just so we're clear. Mr. Wright, what is your experience in litigating cases as a defense attorney, and how do you feel this will help you or hinder you as a prosecutor?
It's a great question. It's not yours. I think it's great. I mean, I think just like what I was saying last time, is that I've seen those sides of it. I do family law, and I do criminal defense. So I find myself in the juvenile courts quite a bit. And that's my passion, is being and helping kids. So it's a little bit different on that side, because there are other things that are available to the courts with regard to the juvenile justice system. My experience there is I've seen children not be allowed to go back to school because of what has happened in the court system. And I think that's a problem that speaks to the school-to-prison pipeline that Commonwealth Attorney Morales spoke of. That's a problem that we can address at some point in the court system, so that we can get them back into the schools, and that way we can get them back on track. So seeing that, I think, is important. With regard to the other side, with the adult side, I think it's important because not only do I deal with the client, but I deal with their family. And if the client's not scared, mama's scared. And she's going to come and talk to you, and I think that speaks directly to dealing with witnesses. Because you need to be able to manage your witnesses, you need to be able to make sure that they feel safe, and that you're doing exactly what needs to be done to make sure that there is justice served for their loved one. Because it's one thing to be the defendant and to be scared, but it's another thing to be the victim. And be afraid to go home. Be afraid of what's going to happen when you come to your car. So I think my ability to comfort my defendants and their family, I think will cross over, and my ability to comfort the victims. And I think more importantly, I'll be able to teach the attorneys in the office how to do that. Thank you.
Ms. Morales, in the years you've been in office so far, how many cases have you personally tried either with or without a jury? And feel free to give us some details about those cases.
Thank you. So this is an interesting question because the answer is not as simple as it may seem. So I've made a number of court appearances on several cases. I've done bond hearings on homicide cases and then assigned them to other attorneys in the office. I've appeared on different motions on felony cases. However, the most taxing case that I did and the case that I had from beginning to end was the prosecution of the police officer for the shooting of an unarmed male that happened here in the city of Portsmouth. I'm sure all of you heard about that case. It was a very difficult case to try. It was a very difficult decision to make, but I felt that it was a decision that needed to be made by the citizens of Portsmouth in the form of 12 jurors. Quite as important as an election is, that some things don't need to be decided by a prosecutor. If there's enough information to go forward, it needs to be decided by a jury. And so I took that case on. And as a result of actually bringing that case to trial, it wasn't just a jury trial, it was actually a series of motions that happened over the course of a year. And so there were about 30 motions that we heard, and there were several court appearances, probably up in the number of 30 or something like that, where we actually came to court and we argued back and forth over issues before the case went to trial. And then we went through a jury trial that lasted about 7 days before we got our verdict. And that was my case from beginning to end. And so when you're doing a case of that magnitude, it's very difficult to have other cases going on. And not only that, it's the type of difficult case where if you're going to do it, you want to show the attorneys in your office, this is what your boss is made of. If I'm going to ask you to do anything serious, I have to show you that I'm willing to do a serious case myself. And as an experienced prosecutor who had tried cases, violent crimes, since 2011 in the office, I felt it was imperative for me to set that example for my team. Thank you.
Mr. Wright, there has been much criticism surrounding the turnover in the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office since the current administration took office. There's been a 67% turnover rate in attorney positions and a 39% turnover rate in support staff. What is your plan to staff the office with attorney and support staff that is committed to working toward getting criminals off the street?
Absolutely. There's a number of people from the office that are in the audience right now, so I think it's important. My goal is not to fire everybody in the office and to replace everybody. My goal is to make sure we have the most efficient office. Management is key. So to come in here and say that we may not lose a couple people because it's going to take evaluation in order to do that, I mean, that's unfortunately the name of the game. There will be some deputies that I bring in that I think are experienced and are able to handle the job. But I think really what we need to do with regard to the attorneys is restructure. We need to have a better game plan with regard to case management and how we manage from the top down. The deputies need to manage the senior assistants need to manage the assistants. It's just generally small unit leadership. And you asked about my leadership. Now with regard to the office staff, any attorney will tell you you're only as good as your assistant. They're really the brains of the operation when you come in there. And at this point, I don't know what I'm dealing with. So it's going to take a very serious evaluation once I get into office. See who's there, and really there's a lot of little things that need to be done, that need to be made sure that oversight is being had. For example, we have neighborhood watch, we have civic leagues. Commonwealth attorneys are supposed to be there. There's only been one Commonwealth attorney I've ever seen at any of the ones that I've been at during this campaign. One. And he's here today. That's a management issue. That's making sure that your people are where they need to be and when they need to be there. So with regard to the turnover, it's not about turnover. It's making sure that we're putting people, the people that can do the job, in the job that they're best suited for. And that's knowing the people that you're working with, and that's managing them effectively. And I think I'm the guy that can do that. Thank you.
Ms. Morales, to give you a shot at the same topic. Can you explain why there has been such a large turnover in staff since you took office? Do you feel that the large turnover has helped or hindered you as Commonwealth's attorney? If re-elected, would you make additional staff changes, or do you feel you have the staff in place to get the job done?
Thank you, Laura. Interestingly, I think my opponent actually justified turnover at the beginning of a new administration. I won't say that I go with the same thought process, but I will say this. It is imperative that you have a staff that can do the job and that you have attorneys who are committed. And for me, I had to make sure that as soon as I took office, I knew that everybody in the office was committed to being fair and to being diligent prosecutors and to being involved in the community. Now, I don't know what civic leagues my opponent attended, but I know that my attorneys are very committed to their civic leagues because they come back and report on what's going on in the community, and oftentimes they engage in direct conversation with the people from their civic leagues. Not only that, they go into the schools. They go into the communities. We even visited Indian Creek Correctional Facility this week to outreach to people who may come back onto our streets, and we want them to go in the right direction. So there's a number of things that we do in the office that we have the right staff that gets the job done. We've been overwhelmingly successful, and the office is way better off than when I took over. Not to disparage anyone, but to put things in context, 26 homicide convictions is extraordinary. The previous administration over the course of 12 years got around 81. And so to get 26 in the first 2 years with a new prosecutor and an excellent team shows the type of dedication and hard work that we're willing to put in. I think the staff that's in place is excellent. They're here tonight because they're concerned and engaged with what happens in this community. And I think Mr. Wright even acknowledged that the way a management team should be structured is such that the deputies and the senior assistants manage the assistants. I'm glad he likes that because that's the way it's set up now. So I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk to you about not just the turnover rate, but to share with you just about how great the team is and how we can do some amazing things going forward because we're still the change agents and we've accomplished what we set out to do before. We're ready to do so much more. Thank you.
Mr. Wright, also on the topic of management, one of the biggest duties of the Commonwealth's attorney is case management, more specifically, bringing cases to trial in a timely manner. Give us some insight as to how you would manage the caseload in order to meet the time limits of the speedy trial statute.
That's a great question. So the primary job of any attorney is to educate their client, whether it be private practice, whether it be a prosecutor, what have you. Your client being the community as a Commonwealth's attorney or what have you. So let's talk about speedy trial. You got 5 months or 9 months to basically bring somebody to trial, depending whether or not they're detained pending adjudication or whether or not they're out on bond. 5 months or 9 months. Now that time will get stopped depending if the time the defense wants a continuance, things like that. Okay, that's a lot of time. That is a lot of time. So we've had issues with that. The way that I would solve that is through the management part. Specifically, the deputies need to meet with their assistants, their senior assistants and their assistants. They need to do that weekly, at a minimum. And they need to find out what the issues are. And the way that small unit leadership works is you deal with things at the lowest possible level. So if there's issues at that point, that deputy needs to get in touch with whoever his liaison is with the police department. So we don't have evidence issues. So we don't have issues that we can say, hey, it's not on us, we didn't get the right material. You need to be able to work with the people across the table with you, the people that are on the same team as you. And if that doesn't work, weekly, I will meet with the deputies, and I will meet with the entire staff. So I find out what the issues are from the deputy level, what can I help you with, and then I find out the entire staff, because nobody gets things done until they have to go before the man, the big boss. So if you haven't gotten it done when you meet with your deputy, and the deputy helps you, by the time you get it with me, it's going to be done. And if I can't do it, then I will talk with Chief Chapman, and then she and I will sit down together and we'll make that happen.
Ms. Morales, this is the last question specific to you. In a recent case involving the indictment of an elected official, you requested the court to assign a special prosecutor citing a conflict of interest. Can you explain your reason behind that decision?
Certainly, thank you for that question. As a prosecutor, we have very serious ethical duties. And so many of you know that we have to take the bar examination. That's very obvious, but many of you may not know that if we do not pass a separate test called the professional responsibility exam, even if we pass that bar examination, we cannot practice. So ethics are taken very seriously in the legal profession. And one of the things that we have to evaluate in a case when we're determining whether or not it's appropriate for us to prosecute it is whether or not there will be any bias. And so if there are elected officials, particularly ones who have responsibility over adopting our budget and giving our attorneys a certain amount of money, or in my case, allocating resources for an investigator, which I begged for the past 2 years, when all of these things are on the table and elected officials are potentially being charged, and they're the people who can decide what type of resources myself and my attorneys can get, I think it's very clear that there could potentially be bias. And so you have a very serious responsibility about deciding how you proceed with these cases. In my case, I felt that because of my relationship with those council persons, and because of their ability and their actual responsibility at that time to vote on my budget, it was best that I requested a special prosecutor. And that is what I did, and the cases proceeded forward in the manner in which they did. Now, as a result of some chatter after I requested a special prosecutor on one of those cases, I reached out to the Virginia State Bar and said, here's the situation. What should I have done? Did I do the right thing? And their response to me was, you acted completely correctly and ethically. Those were their words verbatim. And so I take everything that I do very seriously, especially when it comes to the ethical parts. Thank you.
And Mr. Wright, the last question specifically to you is on the same topic. As you know, recently one of our elected officials was indicted on a number of charges. Our current Commonwealth's attorney asked the court to request a special prosecutor citing that conflict of interest. Given the same facts and circumstances as the current Commonwealth's attorney faced, would you have come to the same decision? And please explain your answer.
No. Here's why. It's not about friends. Does she have any unique information with regard to that issue that would conflict her out from being a prosecutor? Now, this is distinct and different from what happened with Stephen Rankin. Stephen Rankin is a police officer and worked for her. I don't know how you can have a bigger conflict than that. Was it a bad decision to prosecute? No, it wasn't. She shouldn't have been the one to do it. With regard to Councilman Whitaker, I imagine that's who we're talking about. I don't understand what the conflict is. Because you sat with him at a cocktail party? Because you knew him on the campaign? What specific information did you have about that case that would preclude you from prosecuting that? I don't understand that. Here's the other part of it. The bar is not going to criticize you for stepping out. If there's doubt, there is no doubt, right? Why take the risk if you can have somebody else do it? But we stood here 2 years ago and we said, I'm not going to be the one that hands this off to somebody else. But this one case that you didn't have any personal interaction with, you stepped out of. So with regard to me, no, not in that case. If I had some sort of specific knowledge to the facts, then yes.
Thank you both. We're going to move on to the second round of questions. And this round are questions that each of you will answer. And you're again given 2 minutes for your response. Ms. Morales, we'll start with you again. One of the barriers to effectively prosecuting cases in Portsmouth is reluctant witnesses. How do you feel the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office can work with law enforcement to help witnesses feel more comfortable in coming forward?
Thank you. So we have worked very closely with law enforcement to try to help witnesses in the difficult time that a trial process can be. If you read about that travel article, part of what you may not have been able to figure out is that a part of that travel budget that we have is a specific line item that we ask for witnesses. And so what that means is that we will often have witnesses who come from out of state or out of the area who need assistance. But what those numbers don't show you, or what that information doesn't tell you, is that we take it very seriously when anybody is being threatened, when there's any issue where a witness is afraid. And we work with the police department because of their very limited resources. And when they don't have the resources, we've been willing to relocate people. We've been willing to put people out of harm's way. We've been willing to work together with law enforcement, and we have that relationship with them where they tell us, hey, we've been monitoring this and we're out of our depth, we need help, we need to do something about this. That's one part. But the main thing is that we have to have that relationship. And so engaging with all areas of the community, not just those of us who attend meetings like this, not just those who are at civic leagues, but we engage with all citizens. When we do that, that helps to build the relationship. And we have a duty to do that. We've done it, and because of that, that's why we've been so successful with our homicide rate. We've really been able to have success in our convictions with the homicides because of our relationships with the witnesses and victims. When those relationships fall apart, or when we cannot help people feel safe, that's when we have issues with cases. And I think you all have seen that play out on one case that we had recently, where a person was afraid because a reporter was in the courtroom, she backed out, she was our only witness, and now we have to rebuild from scratch. And so when we're able to build that relationship and work together with law enforcement to keep the people in a place where they feel comfortable, we succeed. And we have the team in place that can get those convictions and get the violent murderers off our streets.
We good? There we go. I think the way that you get the community to be involved and to participate and be witnesses, willing witnesses, you got to make them feel safe. And it's going to start with small steps. But the biggest thing that we need to tackle, quite honestly, is the gangs. In our community, what's happening in our lower income areas is that gangs are starting to take over. So we need to make sure that we do something so that when we're not present, when law enforcement's not present, that the gang member, whomever is in that community, doesn't put that inappropriate leverage on our witnesses. There's a couple ways that we can do this. We can remove them from the area, meaning the witness, but if they're local, they've got to go home. Nobody wants to be displaced from their home. But the way that we do that is with community interaction. We have to be at the civic league meetings. We have to make sure that we're accessible. Everybody here has my cell phone number. If you've got my campaign literature, it's on it. The reason for that is I want to be accessible. If you've got a problem, you call me. That's what attorneys do, we're problem solvers. So with regard to our witnesses, how do we make them feel safe? You're accessible. You listen to them. You look them in the face. You hear what they're saying. You show empathy. You don't threaten them. If they get scared, you say, well, I'm going to charge you for perjury or taking out false charges or something like that. You don't become an adversary, but it takes time. It takes time to build trust, and that's the biggest thing that we need right now. And the other things, it doesn't necessarily always mean that you have to have witnesses present. There's other evidentiary ways that we can get testimony in without a physical witness being present. There's such a thing as an unavailable witness, and we can use tools like that. So it's outside of the box thinking, and it's making yourself accessible. Thank you.
This next question, again, goes to both of you, and if you need me to repeat it in between, please let me know. In general, how would you describe your ability to work with law enforcement, court staff, and the judges? Ms. Morales?
Thank you. So this question is great because it allows me to clear up some things that were said previously. So when we're talking about the relationship with law enforcement, let's go back to something that Mr. Wright said. First of all, police officers do not work for the Commonwealth's attorney. Let's just clear that up. And I think this is where some of the inexperience with being in a prosecutor's office as a prosecutor has shown through. I know that Mr. Wright, when he talks about that one jury trial that he did as a prosecutor, he did that as an intern at the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. I know because I was an attorney there at the time. And so when you're actually in the prosecutor's office, you know the relationship and you realize that the attorneys work for the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, the police officers actually work for the police chief, and she works at the direction of the city manager, who works at the direction of council. It's very good that we have the opportunity to clear this up because we don't want any miscommunication or misunderstanding to happen with citizens. But with all that being said, the relationship is imperative. It's not necessarily going to be easy. We're not all here to be best friends. We're here to get a job done. And one of the things that I can say about our relationship with the police department is that it's growing and it's getting better than it's been in the previous years because we're working together. And even when it's difficult, we devise a plan to get even better. And because of that, that's why every third Thursday of the month, our office is now training the police department. We're working together with them. Not to say, look, we don't like the way you did this. We're working with them to say, this is how we can all be better. So the relationship is imperative. Nothing's going to be easy, and we're going to fight with the court because we're advocating for our victims. And so if a judge is trying to rule in the favor of the defense, we're going to fight for our victims every single time. And I think some of the things that Mr. Wright has said about the office and the way it should work, where we should meet and we should discuss things, I'm glad he feels that way because that's what we do. But once again, not having spent the time in the office as an attorney, I think hurts because I know that these are all the wonderful things that we've done. We will continue to do these things going forward and continue to build on relationships. Thank you.
So if I understood correctly, how is my relationship with the court personnel, and the police department?
Yep.
It's great. I love going to court. I do it every day. I mean, it's the best thing in the world. I walk in, I greet all the sheriff's deputies that are there, I say hi. I know their name, they know my name. I go into court, I say hi to the clerk, we smile at each other, we talk a little bit. The judge comes out, they usually make fun of me for the tie that I'm wearing or something like that. It's great. I love court. It's all my friends are there. I mean, I wouldn't do anything else. So let's talk about some other things then. The relationship with the police department. Why is it getting better? It should be great. We should already be there. That's not something that we're going to improve or we're going to work to get better. It should be good, not get close to good. How do we do that? Law enforcement is a very specific breed of person. They're disciplined, they understand their job, and it is a very close-knit unit. The way that you do that you get close to them, is that you have to be where they are. You have to engage with them. You have to do ride-alongs with them. Doesn't mean you have to do all of them, but just that they know that you've been there and you can empathize with what they're doing. You've got to go to the police chief forum. You got to go to the civic leagues. You got to stand next to them when they talk to the citizens that you're standing next to the citizen. There should rarely be a time when there is a public event where a police officer is there to present something that there shouldn't be a Commonwealth attorney standing right next to them. Yes. That's how we get better. That's how we maintain a great relationship with law enforcement.
Ms. Morales, to you. Is there a rule of thumb for offering a plea bargain versus taking a case to trial?
Thank you for the question. So no, there is not a rule of thumb. We don't treat cases like some sort of mill in the office. We look at each individual circumstance because when you look at these cases and you may see a defendant and what their record was, and you may know about sentencing guidelines that we have that can give us some guidance about what the appropriate amount of time to serve may be. But when you think about it like that, you're not thinking about the fact that there is a victim involved. And so we never treat cases like they're supposed to be a mill or a certain set outcome, because we have victims and we have a responsibility to get justice for those victims. So no, there's not a rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is making sure that we go about it in a fair manner and that we work diligently when we do it. Since I have a little bit of extra time, I would like to go back and address some of the things that Mr. Wright said in the last question. about appearances with the police department and about why isn't the relationship already great. These jobs are not about fluff. It's not about ride-alongs. Ride-alongs is something that the interns actually do when they come into the office and do intern work. By the time you're an attorney, you have a lot of work to do. We now have body cams, and that has increased our caseload astronomically. We have so much to do. And we do go to civic leagues and we do public appearances when we can, but it's not about fluff. It's about getting the job done with our citizens. And when we're working with other agencies, we work with the federal agents, we work with police on the local level, we work with the state police. We got a lot of work to do. We can't hold hands all the time. What we got to do is get the job done and get justice for our citizens. That's what we'll continue to do. We will never do it in a mill sort of fashion. We will do it fairly and diligently every single day as we've been doing for the past 2.5 years. Thank you.
The question, if I remember correctly, was about plea bargains.
Yes, what's the rule of thumb for offering a plea bargain versus taking a case to trial?
I think Commonwealth Attorney Morales is absolutely correct. There is no rule of thumb for that. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. One of the best pieces of advice that I got was when I was an intern, she's correct, with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Well, let's think about that. I tried a jury trial as an intern. Just think about that. I got called up to the bench during one of my trials. Judge Ottinger, who was a Commonwealth attorney, who was in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office at one point, pulled me aside and said, "What's your win-loss percentage?" And I said, "I don't know." You know? And he said, "Good, because your job is not to win cases. Your job is to make sure that justice is done. It is not about convictions. It is making sure justice is done, that the victim is made whole again. There's a lot of ways that we do that the defendant is made whole again. There's times that people are convicted of crimes that they otherwise may not have been convicted of because of a plea deal. There's a study out there about overcharging defendants. And the reason they overcharge is because then somebody will take a plea deal for a lesser sentence. So think about this. If I charge you with a felony, you got a wife, a couple kids, but you're charged with a felony for grand larceny. But I tell you, you know what? I'll give you petty larceny. And you get no jail time. So I take away the felony, I take away the threat of jail. Do you want to roll the dice and go to trial? Or do you want to take that plea deal? That's the issue. It's not, is there a cookie cutter plea deal that's out there? It's why are we doing it? Is it to fluff, to pad the numbers? Or is it to do justice? Thank you.
Ms. Morales, to you again. How are you involved with the youth in our community, and what do you feel the Office of the Commonwealth's Attorney can do to assist the at-risk youth in our community?
Thank you, Laura. We're having a mic problem. Should I just shout it out? Okay. Either. Oh, here we go. I like the red dot, it matches my outfit. I don't even know where to begin with this question because I do so much with the youth. That is something that I'm really passionate about. We work really hard to handle all of our duties as prosecutors first and foremost, but we have some fantastic programming that was up and running within a month of me taking office. One of them was our Future Leaders Initiative, and if you've seen any of the information that we put online or even one of the current articles that we had, we have a junior Commonwealth attorney program where we now, as of the end of this summer, had over 150 young people who have come and shadowed in the office with us. They've spent time with the attorneys, they've worked in the office with us, they've done mock trials, and they've seen the office from the inside. And so the young people of Portsmouth, like I once was, can actually see what they can become if they work hard and get their education. Not only that, we've gone to the schools, and when I said we have a strong presence in our schools, I wasn't joking. We actually have a program called Social Media by the Statutes, where we go into the high schools and we talk to the students about the ramifications of their behaviors with their cell phones, online, and all of the different things that lead to bullying and to increasing the suicide rate and suspensions and all kinds of negative behaviors that our children can do that can get them in trouble. So that's just some of the many things that we do. The bottom line is we are there for our young people. That's how I decided I wanted to be an attorney. My mom took me to visit court. And I looked around in the courtroom, and there's something that you can tell about me already. It's probably that I like to talk. Everyone was talking, and I was like, this is the place for me. I stuck to it, went to school, and this is what I have become, all because my mother believed in me enough to take me to court and see what I could be. We've turned around and done the same thing for young people, and we're working hard to make sure not only that we give them this opportunity, but to make sure that they don't get in trouble and that we help break the school-to-prison pipeline. Thank you.
Like I alluded to before, I do family law, and I also practice I'm certified to represent juveniles in the juvenile court. I'm in juvenile court almost daily. As a family law practitioner, I'm also a guardian ad litem. Now, a guardian ad litem is an attorney that is an advocate for children, meaning that if there's a custody dispute or if children are removed from the home based on maybe some abuse or neglect issues, the court will assign an attorney to be a representative and advocate for the child. And that's something that I do. Now, doing that, what happens is you build a relationship with the parents, you meet with mom and dad, you build a relationship with the child or children, to the point that you're not necessarily a big brother, but I mean, you got to take it seriously. And the only way that you can build a relationship with people is if you get down on their level and you talk to them. So as a guardian ad litem, that's what I do. I go to their school. If they have extracurricular activities, I'll go there. I'll come to their home. I was at the end of last fall, and people asked, why have you run for Commonwealth's attorney? Why would you want to do that? At the end of last fall, I was in Swanson Homes doing a home study. And I was talking to a little girl, and I said, trying to figure out what she was about, what she did. And I said, do you play sports? She says, no, we don't play sports. I said, well, like, do you play in the street? Like, do you guys go out there and play basketball or football in the street? Because when I grew up, that's what we would do. She said, no, we don't do that. I said, why not? Because there's a shooting right outside, not that long. I said, that's not right. So since then, I made the decision to run. And now that I've been running, it's given me a good platform to look at other things. So I've practiced in a number of different courts. There's different systems and policies that they have in the different courts, which I want to bring here to Portsmouth. And I have a very good relationship with kids, and that's the reason why I'm here. Thank you.
This is the last question of this section of the forum, and I ask you this with this insight. This is the question you'll answer before you give your closing. Please explain what makes you the best candidate to be Portsmouth's Commonwealth attorney.
Thank you, Laura. Oh my, so I'll just put it like this. Mr. Wright and I have a lot of similarities from what I've been hearing. One of the similarities is that we were both interns in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. We both did jury trials while we were interns. But the difference is that I've gone on to do a whole lot more in the world of prosecution. So I went into private practice too. I was a guardian ad litem too. I practiced in other court systems in the area as well. But it was in my heart to come here in 2011 and be a prosecutor because I felt that that's how I could impact justice. I felt that that's how I could reach out to the children of this city. And I didn't just start working with youth and working on restoration of rights and things of that nature when I became the elected Commonwealth's attorney. I was able to talk about all of those things when I was running the last time because that was what I took to heart and what I did when I was an assistant and then on my own time in the community. And so the reason I'm the best person for this job is not just because of what I can tell you I can do or what I think. I can tell you what I know. And that's that we have this office in a place that's so much better than it was. We've advanced in technology, and we've been overwhelmingly successful. The numbers don't lie. If it took 12 years to get 80-some homicide convictions and we got 26 in the first 2.5, that's a big deal. And a lot of those convictions were not for cases that just happened. We had to go back and do some cases from 2012 and 2011, and we work with other agencies to do it. I don't have to train, I don't have to guess. I'm doing this job, I'm doing it well, and that's the reason why I'm the best person for the job. Not only that, I'm not alone. I have a phenomenal team. Everybody just wave your hand who's in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. They've done a fantastic job, and we deserve the opportunity to serve you for 4 more years. And that's why I'm the best. Thank you.
question to you.
So is this the closing statement?
No, you'll get another chance to do that.
Why am I the best man for the job? Because I'm effective. I've always been effective. I went to military school for high school. In 3 years, I was the highest ranking person in that school. When I went to college, I worked full-time, went to school full-time. I joined the Marine Corps. They made me an officer. I flew jets. I went to combat. I'm decorated. I graduated law school early. I went into private practice. I'm successful in private practice. I've had my own business here in Portsmouth since 2014. So why should I be Commonwealth's attorney? Why should I be your Commonwealth's attorney? Because I'm effective. And because I care. This is my home. My oldest daughter was born in Portsmouth Naval Hospital. My youngest daughter was born when I was in law school. I need to make this community good for them because they're from here, not come here.
And in case you missed anything in the answer of that question, you guys will both now have an opportunity to give your closing statements, and you'll have 3 minutes for this. And Mr. Wright, this time we'll start with you.
Fine. Well, when your last name is Wright, you're used to going last, so. Reverse alphabetical order was the best day in school ever. So, tell him what you told him, tell him. Or tell him what you're gonna tell him, and then tell him what you told him. So what did we learn here today? You've learned about me, the man that stands before you. I feel like I have experience. I have life experience. I have management experience. I've got law experience. I think there's a lot of differences between myself and my opponent in that regard. I've tried juries, if that's a question. I'm active in the community. I've been on boards here in Portsmouth. The Portsmouth YMCA, down the street, deals with youth. I was on that board. The Elizabeth River Project, I was on that board. I'm a graduate of the LEFCO Leadership Program, part of the Portsmouth Partnership. I'm gonna come here, but I'm growing roots, and they're deep. This is gonna be my home. I'm gonna make it better. I'm gonna make it better for you, because I'm gonna make it safer. I want you to be safe in your home. I want everybody to be safe. Because if we help our neighbors, that helps us. So where are we going to go with this? I want to change our juvenile justice system. I want to get us more services here in Portsmouth. We don't have enough. If we look at our partner cities, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Newport News, Hampton, they have many more options that they can use for the juvenile justice system. I want to establish a mental health docket here. Mental health is a serious issue that we have in Portsmouth. It's something that we're not addressing. It's in the paper every day, but we're not doing anything about it. We stand here and we say we don't want to do the status quo, but we keep doing the same thing over and over. Let's think outside the box. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's do more. If you know anything about the Marine Corps, we're the best at doing more with less. I am a Marine, I will always be a Marine, and I will serve you like I did as a Marine. Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your attention tonight. I could see your faces. I could tell that you were engaged and you were listening to everything that I was saying when I was talking to you, and that's important because there was a lot of information packed into those little 2-minute increments. But I want to invite you to, like I said before, read the literature, go to my website and read in depth about the things that we've been doing and the things that we plan to do going forward. Because my opponent says we don't need to reinvent the wheel and we need to do things differently. I agree 100%, and that's what we've been doing. We have been doing things differently. We've implemented programming, and we're ready to take it to the next level. And when he says that we're not doing anything about mental health, maybe he's not doing anything about mental health. we are doing something about mental health in the office. We've been working very hard, and we've been working with other agencies to do the things that we need to do to succeed as a community. I grew up here in the Truxton section of Portsmouth. I went to Howland Biltmore Elementary, Hunt Nut Middle School, and I.C. Norcom High School. And then I went on to Norfolk State University, and like my opponent, he did law school in 2.5 years. I did my undergrad in 3 years. My husband and I had our 2 first children, and then when I went to William & Mary, I started there with a 5.5-month-old and a 1.5-year-old, 2 little boys at law school at William & Mary. And that's why I'm tough. Nothing phases me, because if I can do law school at William & Mary with 2 boys, and commute back and forth every day from Portsmouth because I'm from here and I love it. And then I can do this job now with 4 children, 2 of whom are twin girls and they're 4 years old. If they would have been here tonight, you all wouldn't have been able to be ready for them. If I can do all of that, I know I can do anything. And we've been able to do great things, and we will continue to do great things with your support. There's not enough time here tonight to tell you about all of the wonderful things that we've done. So I want to invite you to do what I talked about at the beginning. Let's have a conversation. Even if you think you've committed to my opponent, I want to talk to you. I want you to hear about the plans and what we've done and what we plan to do and what we can do together. Thank you.
Before we let you both go, we're going to see if the audience has any questions. I'm just going to stand so I can make sure that I can see everyone. If you all will wait until a mic gets to you when you ask your question, and again, if you don't want to be on camera, just let us know ahead of time. We'll start up there in the corner. Just give us 1 second till we get you a mic.
Thank you. My name is Bill Devers, Hatton Point. I'm a retired local school teacher. I have a lot of friends on the police department. And I also just recently graduated from the Portsmouth Citizens Police Academy. And I have heard nothing but comment after comment from members of the police department, but the lack of cooperation between the Commonwealth Authority and the police department. Now my question is not, is this perception true? But my question is, why do they have this perception?
Thank you, sir, for bringing that up. I appreciate the opportunity to engage. The bottom line is this: it's not easy doing this job. It's very difficult because when we get investigative results in our office, oftentimes we don't just say, all right, this is awesome, let's hold hands and let's go to trial. We have work to do. And so sometimes we have to say, we need you to go back and do X, Y, Z. That has improved a great deal with us now having an investigator in the office. But I have to tell you something, the relationship with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and the police department was a little bit rough when I was an assistant under the previous administration, and I'll give you a quick example. The police officers, it was the perception of my predecessor that the police officers were not showing up to court on time, and they were not showing up enough. And so what he told us to do as the assistants is, he said, ask for capiases. That means to ask for an arrest warrant on them. And that's what we were sent to court to do, and the judges rejected that premise, so that didn't go on for very long. But that was the relationship that I walked into when I took office. So things were not all peaches and cream, but we have to work together. And so what I'm doing is we're doing just that. We're trying the best that we can. We work together to put a program in place so that we train the police department. But that training is not just about us talking with the police department. It's about us learning from each other and working together more. And as we work together more, the relationship continues to improve. It's not something that's just going to be just automatically great. And even if it is great, we can still work and get it to be even better. So I don't know whether that's something that's just happened overnight. I suspect it's not, because I remember when things were a lot worse. So we're working on it. Thank you.
Mr. Wright, do you have anything to add on that topic?
Bill, I appreciate you bringing that up. If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck. The issue here is pronouns. They don't work for the Commonwealth's attorney, they work with the Commonwealth's attorney. Same team, same fight, right? We want to make things better. We want to work together. It's not about hand-holding, it's not touchy-feely, it's respect. They want to be respected, just like you want to be respected. Just like I want to be respected. They don't want to be looked down upon. They're not subservient. or subservient to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, they serve a different job. Think of it like a football team. They're the long snapper. They're the one that gets the ball first, and they hand it off to the quarterback, which would be the Commonwealth's attorney. Same team, different job. But if they don't work well together, what happens? Disaster. So that relationship, if it's perceived to not be good, if it's perceived to not be good by the people that are part of that relationship, it's like a marriage. There needs to be more communication, and maybe there does need to be more hand-holding. But at some point, that perception from internal, from within, needs to be changed.
Head over to this side over here, sir.
Well, I'd like to thank both candidates for being here tonight. I have to direct this to the current Commonwealth's attorney, and I have to predicate a question. Recently, there's been a lot of news in print and on the TV about mismanagement in PRHA. Also, an alleged theft or misuse of a credit card to the tune of about $8,000. PRHA refuses to divulge the nature of HUD's investigation and what evidence was discussed and exchanged. It would seem with millions of dollars going to these people's hands, there should be a grand jury impaneled. Why hasn't that been done?
Thank you, sir. I can talk to you about what I know with respect to the PRHA investigations. First of all, when we're talking about HUD, if that's something that was an investigation that was done on the federal end, while we work quite a bit with the federal agents in the U.S. Attorney's Office, if there's something that came out of a federal investigation, the U.S. Attorney's Office is the agency that will pick that up. Not to say that if they investigate and they find that the U.S. Attorney's Office finds that they do not want to prosecute it and they would like to kick it over to us, we have the option to work with a special assistant U.S. attorney who's assigned to our area. I will tell you what my office is taking part in with respect to PRHA. I did also see reports about a potential theft from PRHA, and you mentioned that as well, correct? That is something, I'm sorry? Yes, it was reported to the police, and that is something that definitely falls under my jurisdiction as the Portsmouth Commonwealth's attorney. I saw the reports in the paper, saw that it was reported to the police, and that there was no warrant that followed or any investigation that followed. I can divulge to you that I had a meeting as a result of that, and then what we did after that was my office took over the investigation. Again, I know the police department is very busy, we are as well, but what we decided that we needed to do, seeing as though we now have our own investigator, was because since it wasn't investigated right away and charged, we took over the investigation. So it is now currently being investigated for the funds that were allegedly stolen from PRHA, and something will happen. And so all of that to say, if something happens on the federal end and it's not in my jurisdiction, I try to remain aware and vigilant so that if there's some way that I can help and aid the special assistant U.S. attorney who services our area, I will. But I most certainly can do something about what happens in the city of Portsmouth. And my office has taken over that investigation for the alleged theft of funds from PRHA in our city. Thank you.
Well, down here in the front.
Okay, hey, Mr. Wright, I applaud you for being willing to give yourself to public service in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. My question, though, is you've been in business since, I think you said, 2014, and you've got a lot of ideas and things you want to do in the community. Absent your work and things you've done with your work, what have you done in the community since 2014?
Since 2014, sure. Like I stated, I was on the board with the YMCA. I was on the board with ERP. I do have 2 small children, and I'm a solo practitioner, so my time is pretty limited. Despite that, I'm active in my children's school. I'm active, I was a soccer coach for U5 team, undefeated. But it's all about opportunity, and you make opportunity. So I try and be involved with things that I can help my family with, and if I can reach other people through that, I do that. Now, can I say here that I've started some program and done these initiatives and things, but no. But there's things behind the scenes that I've done. I've gone to the courts here in Portsmouth and tried to start a best practices team, which is something that exists in other jurisdictions. Now what that is a team, it is a group that is headed by the juvenile courts, and it has a representative from, it could have the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, but typically doesn't. We'll have a guardian ad litem, have somebody from CASA, which they're advocate for children, excuse me. We'll have people from Department of Social Services, and that way it's a collaborative effort to help children and help the community so that we can do things that are better. We can affect the school to prison pipeline, which keeps coming up. So those are things like that. I try and make things happen from a policy standpoint, and I bring ideas to the table of things that I've seen happen in other jurisdictions that we're just not doing here. I spoke at council this summer about a post-dispositional program. To explain about that a little bit is that we don't have our own detention center here in Portsmouth. So anytime a child is picked up for a crime, he's held in Chesapeake, pending any sort of, whether or not he's going to be given bond or pending adjudication if he's not given bond. Now what that means is that a resident from Portsmouth has to travel, a parent has to travel all the way to Chesapeake to go see their child, which is difficult, especially in our lower income areas. I mean, to take a bus to Chesapeake is a half-day affair. You got to go through Norfolk to get to Chesapeake. So why is a post-dispositional program the better alternative for us here at Portsmouth? This is why. And this is where the crux of the argument is, and this is what my belief is why we're failing our community. If a child gets picked up for a simple crime, let's say he stole a candy bar, okay? That's the example I used in front of council. Stole a candy bar at 7-Eleven, clerk calls the police, he gets put before a judge, right? He gets tried, he's found guilty. Now what they say, or they withhold a finding, they don't find him guilty at that point. They say, hey, you know what, young man, you go home, you stay on good behavior, and we'll dismiss this, we'll act like it never happened. That's great, right? Everybody would like that deal. I'll go home, don't get in trouble. But here's the problem, he's put on probation. And probation for a juvenile is a recipe for disaster. Here's why. They have to sign a rules of conduct that says they're not going to drink alcohol, they're not going to smoke, use marijuana, they won't get in trouble at school, they won't break curfew. These are all things that happen every day for our youth, that they deal with every single day. But we haven't given this child any sort of parameters, any guideline, any help for him to go there and go home and stay out of trouble so he can have this dismissed. Instead, what happens is he stays out late one night, he gets picked up, and now he's got a probation violation. A second charge for something that we've done nothing for that child to improve his station in life. We've done nothing to help him basically resist these things. We say, hey, you need to have the self-discipline to say no to these things, but I'm just going to send you home and do it. Now, a post-D program is a little bit different. Is it a prison for kids? No. What a post-dispositional program is it's a program that's designed to be 6 months long, 180 days, and it has a 30-day, every 30 days we do a review. And through it, they get schooling through the public school system. It would be a Portsmouth public school, so there's no break in the continuity of their education. They get therapy, individual and family therapy, because a lot of times families, how they operate as families is going to affect what they do out in town. So they get family therapy, and it's incentive-based. So if they do well, they can earn home passes, they can earn field trips, things like that. So it's positive reinforcement. We're teaching skills. We're teaching a way to do better. And at the end of it, the best thing is at the end of it, at the end of the 6 months, if they have to do the whole 6 months, they do a mental health evaluation. They do a mental health evaluation, and then we screen them, and then we can get a follow-on service with the Department of Social Services. This is what we're not doing. This is the wheel that does need to be reinvented here, but we're not even talking about it. So, to answer your question about what am I doing in the community, I'm working with my family, I'm impacting the best that I can, but I'm trying to get better things to Portsmouth in that regard. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add on that, Ms.
I would like to respond. So I have 4 children, as you heard me say before, And it's easy to participate with your own children and then to say, I hope I influence other people as a result of what I do with my children. It's a little bit more difficult to get your hands dirty and not just say, I'm going to influence policy and I'm going to help my own children and see what the trickle over effect is. And I've been getting my hands dirty in the city of Portsmouth for as long as I can remember, because that was what was ingrained in me and taught to me since I was a child. And that's what the children learn when other people who are not their family members or parents invest in them in that way. With respect to the school-to-prison pipeline and post-disposition programs, I hope that my opponent is not misleading you when he says that this is not going to be a prison for children. Because to me, it sounds like a detention center. When we talk about a 6-month program, that sounds like bringing a juvenile detention center to the city of Portsmouth. And we have a battle going on next door in the city of Chesapeake, where the residents of Chesapeake are fighting against having a juvenile correctional facility in their city. We need to talk about what we need to do for our youth and what type of programs we can have without raising a juvenile detention facility in our city. We've had issues in the past where we've talked about all kinds of things, a trash site, cell towers, and we get into arguments and bicker back and forth in our city over where is this going to go? Is this going to be in Cavalier Manor? Is this going to be in Truxton? Is this going to be in Churchland? I haven't heard anything from my opponent about where this juvenile detention center is going to go if he has it his way. Furthermore, the General Assembly was in session. I didn't see my opponent going to the General Assembly to talk about what he wanted to do. The council passed the budget. I didn't see my opponent going before council prior to this budget being passed. It's pretty convenient that he is now going before the council, before this election, during a time frame where there's really nothing that can be done prior to this election. And if he is not the elected Commonwealth attorney, our city and our community could be dealing with the results of something that he proposed that he has no idea what the effects are going to be. So we need to be very careful as a community when we start talking about bringing a juvenile detention center to our city. We need to be talking about what other types of services we can have for our youth to make sure that they succeed, and not talking about bringing a jail for children over to our community. Thank you.
I'm going to get to the next question, so we're not going back and forth, but I'm sure either one of you will stick in your responses to the other person's when you want to. Sir, up here.
Hello, my name is John Slaughter, and was a former office administrator with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. This question is for Mr. Morales. During the candidate forum prior to your election, you spoke about diversity and that you would like the office makeup to reflect the city, correct? Then after you were elected, you were heard at a speaking engagement that you would like to have the first all-black Commonwealth Attorney's Office in the state of Virginia. And this was overheard by a former support staff person that was there. In the spirit of diversity, why would you make a statement like that?
Mr. Slaughter, it's good to see you again. I do know you. I remember when you were in the office as the administrator, but I do have to take this opportunity to correct you. And it's unfortunate that someone would accuse me of saying such a thing. I would never say something of that nature, that I would like to have the first all-black Commonwealth Attorney's Office in the nation or in the state or whatever the person accused me of saying. That is actually an accusation that I would be committing a violation of the law if I were hiring and firing based on race. That is absolutely not the case. That is absolutely something I did not say, and I take issue with whoever indicated that I said that, and that's very unfortunate. I will say that our office is fabulous. We do have a very diverse office, and the makeup of the attorneys is very close to reflecting the population of the city of Portsmouth. We have 9 attorneys who are persons of color. We have 9 attorneys who are white. And so our office is reflective of Portsmouth. But that happened organically. When we interview people, we brought the best candidates to the office. I had to make sure that each and every one of them cared about our city, that they were willing and ready to prosecute, that they were intelligent, and that they were going to do the right thing by all of us. And so as you can see, there are right many people here from the office Some of them are not African American, and that's because they were good candidates and they were hired not based on their race, but on their qualifications, their education, and what they can bring to the table. And that is what we will continue to do. And anyone who tries to bring that kind of negativity into a situation like this, where voters are trying to inform themselves and make the right decision, I have an issue with that type of thinking. It's very unfortunate, and I hope we spend our time more wisely next time when we're talking about things such as this, and that we don't have to waste it on a silly question and a horrible accusation like that. Thank you.
Mr. Wright, do you have any comments on City? Ma'am?
This is work. Okay, it's working. I just have a quick question for you, Mr. Wright. I recently graduated from OU with a history degree, and I did my thesis on domestic violence legislation. What's not really common knowledge is the fact that most young women that run away from home have been sexually molested. So you've got kids who are, you know, when you end up in the jail, they're arrested because they're not allowed to leave home before the age of 18. They can be arrested and brought back to the home where they're being sexually molested and they're being abused. You stated that you first talk to the parents and then you talk to the kids. How can you be an advocate for the kids when the people who are neglecting the child, the people who are abusing the child, are the people who are the ones that you go to for your first impressions?
Well, looks like I have some clarification. Was that not the question?
That's
Okay.
not, that's part one of it. Part two is the abusers have a tendency to come off as arrogant, people who like to talk about themselves, people who are self-assured. You come off as all three. How are you going, you said that, you said I'm arrogant, I've come off as arrogant, I've been accused of arrogance, and you say I love, my favorite topic is me. These are your words from this evening. So how can you help a woman who is either a victim of domestic violence or is being sexually molested by members of their family, and how can you reassure those women that you're on their side?
No, that's a great question. No, be fair. That's a very good question. I think the way that it's phrased, I think it came off a little harshly, but that's okay. Let's address this. I think it's a perfect time to address a couple things. All right. The first thing is with regard to guardians ad litem. A lot of times, the majority of the time that I'm appointed as a guardian ad litem, it's in a custody issue, okay? Not an abuse issue, okay? So it's a very specific thing. And the reason that I meet with the parents first is because nobody knows their kids better than the parent. And if you have a child that is very shy, and you just come in and you lock them in a room with a 6-foot-tall male, that's not doing that kid any good. So I meet with the parents so that I can find out, what is your kid like? Is your kid shy? What kind of cartoons do they like? Things of that nature. So that I can communicate with them and I can connect with them on that level. So I can say like, oh, because I have 2 daughters, I have a 5- and an 8-year-old. So I can say, oh, my daughter likes this as well. Oh, I braid my daughter's hair. Do you want to see some pictures? Oh, I do my daughter's nails. Do you want to see some pictures of that? So with regard to women, because I think it's focused specifically towards women, that's how I communicate with, is that I'm a safe person, and then I can get a little backstory before I come in and meet with the child. Now, if it comes with an abuse and neglect type issue, that's a completely different standard. I don't meet with the parents first because the parents typically will have counsel. And a lot of times, it doesn't matter because there's already been an investigation with regard to what's happened at that point. That social services has been involved in those scenarios to where we already know what the backstory is with regard to abuse. So in a situation like that, the first person that I'm going to go to is going to be somebody with social services. Because ideally, the person with social services established rapport with that child. And then that way, I can get the same information from that person and I can deal with it that way. Now, if it's in the context of a female, okay, safety is paramount. And I don't ever want to be put in a situation, and candidly, I was joking when I say that my favorite subject is me. I would be a special kind of creep to come out here and to really believe that. So I apologize if I came across that way. But candidly, I'm never going to put myself in a situation to allow there to be accusations or misinterpretations with regard to me. So if a child that's been abused or neglected has a rapport with a social worker or a therapist, I'm going to meet with that child with those people as well. It's not going to just be me alone in the room with the other person. Now, when it comes to domestic violence victims, how can I be the one that, or how can I assure that person as to what's going on? Quite honestly, it's a very similar formula. The first thing is they need to find somebody that they do have a rapport with. It's not me. If they've been abused by a male, I'm not going to be the one that sits in there, because that's not being sensitive to what they've got going on. There is a diverse group that's in the Commonwealth Attorney's office. Ideally, we would have somebody that would be trained in domestic violence, that they would have specific training for that and specific training with regard to talking with that victim. There is a victim advocacy portion of the Commonwealth Attorney's office that establishes that rapport. So they can help and talk with the victim that way. We can have a female attorney talk with them then. And if it gets to the point that they need assurance that this office is behind you as a victim of domestic violence, is behind you as a victim of abuse, that's where I can help. Because I can be the face of the office. I can come in and say, not alone one-on-one, but I come into the dynamic, the group setting, which should be comfortable already, and I say, I believe your story, and it's my job that this office is going to support you the best way that we can. I hope that answers your question.
Morales, I'll give you a brief opportunity to respond, and then we're just going to take one more question.
Sure, thank you. I see a running theme here that there needs to not be a surface level relationship with young people. There was an earlier characterization of youth when talking about how they get in trouble and the process of deferring their dispositions and setting them up for failure by giving them terms and conditions of their release. The problem I have with saying that they've been set up for failure is that I believe in our youth quite a bit. I'm from the city of Portsmouth, and when I grew up here, I didn't drink every day. I didn't smoke every day. I didn't drink and smoke at all as a youth. I didn't have trouble staying out. These are not impossible conditions. These are the way our youth are supposed to behave. And this is the way that most of our youth do behave. So this lack of faith in our young people, to think that they can't go a day without smoking, drinking, or staying out all night long is a little bit disturbing to me. Furthermore, with respect to your responsibilities as a guardian ad litem, I was trained as a guardian ad litem and served as one before I came to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. And your priority is to be an advocate for the child. You are the attorney for the child, not the parents. And even though there may not be an allegation of abuse, there's a situation where parents are fighting over custody, and they will tell you what they want you to believe about their child, about what they like, or whatever they want you to think. Your responsibility is to go in and meet with the child, and you have to get down and dirty to do this. It's not something that you can get a buffer and get parents to be a bridge for you and this child, and it's the same way in the office. As attorneys, you have to get down on the children's level, and you have to communicate with them. Furthermore, our victim witness department is excellent. They work very hard, but furthermore, we've applied for the past 2 years that I've been in office to get a VSTOP grant back. That is a grant that deals directly with having an attorney who advocates only domestic violence cases, and it provides resources to the office. That's a grant that was lost under the previous administration for whatever reason. We've worked very hard, and we've applied once more to try to get that grant back. So we don't have to talk about what we want to do or what we think could happen. I know it needs to happen. We're working on it, and we're not surface level. I don't have to just be the face of an organization. I'm down and dirty with all my attorneys, working hard for and with our young people. Thank you.
We are past 8:30 now, so we're just going to take one more question, but I imagine both candidates will stick around after if you have anything else that you'd like to ask them. Sir, right here.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My question is for candidate Mr. T.J. Wright. Sir, with your only experience as a prosecuting attorney, being as an intern, how long will it take you to learn the job and make a smooth transition into office?
So the question is, how long will it take me to make a smooth transition to the office?
Yes, you you stated earlier that as a prosecuting attorney, you were an intern at the time.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. It's a fair question. It's an unanswerable question. I can't give you a day, I can't give you a second, a minute, things like that. And candidly, you continually make things better. So there's things that you learn from a bunch of different ways. But here's what I can tell you that I will do. From day one, I'll be able to manage the office. From day one. It's not going to take me weeks, it's not going to take me months. Day one. I'll be able to put people where they need to be and make sure that we maintain, so that if there is a learning curve or things of that nature, we don't lose anything. Now, I think I can improve it from day one. Here's the second thing. You can't be prideful. If you don't know something, you gotta ask. If there's a better way to do things, if they're doing something better in Hampton, if they're doing something better in Chesapeake, we gotta go and talk to those people. If they've got better case files than Newport News, why aren't we doing that here? Why don't we have the best in Portsmouth? Why do we settle? Why do we say it's okay? Well, it's not getting worse, so that's fine. No. So as far as transition is concerned, day one, it's going to be better. And it's going to continue to improve. Because that's the way that you manage. That's the way that you lead. I hope that answers your question.
Ms. Morales, I'll give you an opportunity to respond, and then maybe we'll close out.
Thank you. Well, we do have the best in Portsmouth. And we've done exactly what Mr. Wright doesn't seem to know that we've done. We've worked with other agencies, and we've done some phenomenal things that I'm pretty sure you may not even know about. One of the wonderful things, I know I don't have much time, and I told you I like to talk, so I'll keep it brief and just talk about one thing, and we can talk about many others if you come engage me in conversation. But one of the really great things that I'm sure you don't know about is that I worked with the Attorney General's office as soon as I got in office. Worked very hard with a gentleman named Phil Figueroa. He's the Senior Assistant Attorney General. We worked hard and we rallied the other Commonwealth attorneys on the South Side. And we brought the first multi-jurisdiction grand jury to the South Side of Virginia. And that was something that the other Commonwealth attorneys couldn't get on the same page about for whatever reason before I took office. And after Phil and I got together, we worked together and we got this multi-jurisdiction grand jury. And what it does is it's up and running every single month. It's an investigative grand jury. It's like the grand jury that you hear about on the federal side, where we're able for only specific crimes within the code section of Virginia that talks about multi-jurisdiction grand jury, murders, very violent crimes, gang crimes, things like that. We're able to take cold cases and prosecute cases that we could not prosecute before because we didn't have this kind of tool. We've already had indictments to come out of this multi-jurisdiction grand jury, and we've done this as a result of working together with other agencies. We have a special assistant U.S. attorney who comes from the Attorney General's office. He's in Norfolk. He works with our office. We've been working with the federal system to bring very violent and high-level drug dealing cases through the federal system. We've done that because of our relationships with other agencies, and we've done so much more. I won't talk about it all right now, but just know that all the things that he seems to be concerned about and that he would aspire to do, we've done it, and we want to keep doing it. We're in place. We're doing a fine job. The numbers don't lie when it comes to these homicide convictions, and we want to do it with you at our sides. So thank you for listening tonight. I ask you for your vote and your support.
Thank you so much to both candidates for joining us, and I will toss it back to Pam for some closing.
Thank you all very much. There are a couple of things I need to tell you before I turn it over to Anthony. If you have an email, you will be... Sorry. We need people to man the polls for the election, and you will be getting an email asking you to do so tonight, just as well as the form and the survey and the questionnaire about who you're going to vote for. If you don't have email and you'd like to work the polls, there's a form on the table to sign up for. Anthony, you're going to talk about money. This is Anthony Hines. He's our advertiser and our marketer.
Well, good evening, and I'm sorry I have to talk about money, but first and foremost, thank you both for really, you're doing a great job tonight. Really appreciate the candor and the great answers and being things to think about. But part of what we do here at People for Portsmouth is this process with the forms that we have. And naturally, these forms do not come free. They do cost money. Each one of these forms we've done 3. Each one of them has cost us about $500 a piece to do. Furthermore, we actually have to get behind these candidates that we do ultimately select as our slate. That also costs money. And last election, which was a very successful election for the People for Portsmouth, I believe we were into the several tens of thousands of dollars you put into our slate. Be able to do that and support these candidates, we need your help. So what we're doing now is we have the bagel nuts over here. We're selling.
We have 20 of them.
20 of them. We'd like to see all of them gone. That'd be great. We're also having a fundraiser on September the 16th right here at this very place here. The tickets are $25. You have a wonderful barbecue dinner, plus also an opportunity to hear the Soul Intent Band. Again, that's September 16th, and they're $25. And if you're not interested in bagel nuts or dancing, we would gladly take your money as well. So we certainly do appreciate your support for coming out, but we do need your help financially to be able to do what we need to do to elect good government. Again, thank you very much. We will have ability to take your credit card payments as well, right over here. You can come see Fred Schoenfeld. We'll set you up. You can see any member of the People for Portsmouth if you want to purchase a ticket. Thank you very much. You can make that check out to People for Portsmouth. People for Portsmouth. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Please come down and meet the candidates.